Welcome, everyone. Good morning. So just in case you think that Hanukkah is over, it isn't, because today is the last day. So till nightfall tonight, we've got to grab every part of Hanukkah that we can. And actually, we need to think about, what was that? Yeah. Buy some more donuts. That's what we're all missing. Yeah. So, we before we kind of close off Hanukkah for this year, we need to actually think about the last day of Hanukkah is a really significant one. I was just listening to something this morning. We call the last day of Hanukkah Zot Hanukkah. And if you think about, if Hanukkah is all about adding light, which day has the most light on it? The last one, right? This is the culmination of all the light that we're bringing into the world. But as with every Yom Tov, part of what we need to do is not just think about Hanukkah today, but how we can take the light of Hanukkah into the next periods of time. So like on Yom Kippur, it's not about just the day, it's about bringing that into the rest of the year. Today is thinking really about that culmination of all the light. It's the highest point of Hanukkah is actually today. Today is last night, and today is the greatest part of Hanukkah. But it's also about thinking about how we can bring that into the rest of the year. So I saw a lovely idea brought down. People called it a custom, but I think we try to reserve custom for things that are like based in the sources and passed down. But I think it's a really powerful idea nonetheless. That before you put your menorah away, you can write a prayer. They called it a wish, but we don't really talk about wishes. We talk about a prayer for something that you really want for the coming year, and stick it to the bottom of your menorah. And when you take it out next year, you can reflect on how the year has been and what your prayers for the next year, for the year was. So I've not heard this till this year, so to me it doesn't sound like it's based in our sources, but what a lovely concept that is based on the idea that there is a really powerful connection to praying and bringing light and connecting to Hanukkah. So the 8th day of Hanukkah, if we think about how many candles we've lit till now, so those of you who were at the lunch will know that if you count the shamash as well, it was 44, but the shamash doesn't count as one of the candles. So how many candles have we lit really over Hanukkah? 36. Does anyone know where the number 36 is brought down in Jewish thought? It's Kabbalistic. I wonder if anyone's heard of. So when Hashem created the world, there's a great question. I think there's so many great questions about creation. And because we learn about it from when we were very little in school or in Cheder, you kind of never really revisit those concepts. So I'll give you a great question. God created the first day, and he created, what was created? Light and dark, right? Light and dark, both were created. And then a few days later, he created the sun, moon, and the stars. So first of all, what was light? Why do you need sun, moon, and stars if there is light? We don't have light without the sun. I mean, I know now we've got electricity, but that doesn't really count in terms of what we're talking about here. And also, if there was only sun, moon, and stars on day 4, anyone? 4? Yeah, I got it right. On day 4, so then how do we know it's day and night on day 1? Isn't that brilliant question that we kind of all just learn Bereshit and we never actually think like, how does that work? So I'm not going to answer all the questions. I'll just give you things to think about. But one of the concepts that we do learn about, and this is like some very deep Kabbalistic ideas, is that when God created that original light, it wasn't sun, moon, and stars. It was a special light that came into the world. And it existed in the world for 36 hours. Sound like a familiar number? 36 hours. And then God hid that light because it was actually too bright. And that light, we're told, is saved for very righteous people. And it's saved for the time in the future. So when the sun, moon, and stars were created, that's the light we know of. But there is a special hidden light, which is called Or Haganuz, the hidden light, that is only reserved for very special righteous people. There's also a concept that in every generation there are 36 hidden tzaddikim, 36 hidden righteous people in the generation. So it's not necessarily the people that you know or that you've met, but people who just quietly get on with being very righteous that we don't know about, and they have access to this special light. But on Hanukkah, there's something about the 36 lights, and especially today, on Zot Hanukkah, on the last day of Hanukkah, we've lit 36 lights, which means we're trying to tap into that incredible light that God originally used to create the world. Now, what that means, I don't know, because I'm not a Kabbalist. But all I do know is there's a tremendous amount of strength and energy today. So we all have to tap into that, which means that there are so many things that we all want, need, pray for. Today's the day to make sure you don't need to tape something to the bottom of your menorah, but you do need to spend time today at some point praying, because there is so much that we need in the world. And there's so much that we desperately want, that we desperately need for us collectively as a people, for us as a community, for each of us individually. Today's a very powerful day to pray, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure that at some point today, we really take that time in our own words or with words from the Siddur, however we want, but to really try to connect. There's something powerful going on today. So ask Hashem for the things that we need. And I think that this year especially, we started Hanukkah. It's interesting because we met last Monday, and I will be honest with you, I don't think that the news had sunk in when we met. Maybe for some people it had, but for me, I felt only over the next few days, I really began feeling that what had happened in Sydney began to kind of seep in. I think I told you that I saw, as I was crossing the road to come here, that's when I saw the news. So there wasn't time to kind of, oh no, sorry, that was for the ladies' breakfast, right? But even, in a day, I couldn't get my head around. We didn't really know exactly what and who. And then since then, there have been unbelievable stories, and seeing the pictures of the people that were just coming together. Like, we had this massive Hanukkah celebration last night. That's all that they were doing. They were just coming together to celebrate Hanukkah. And the reminder that there is so much darkness out there makes us realize why our light is so much more important, why we have to keep finding the light. We cannot give in to despair, because that's part of darkness. We cannot, give in to the forces that want us to hide. But it's hard. It's hard. But last night, over Shabbat, over every night when we came together, the reminder to all of us of how we come together to bring light filled me with hope and love. It really did. As much as it's been a really tough week for all of us, but it's also been Hanukkah, and we haven't let that stop us celebrating Hanukkah. So I'm going to share some of the emails that have been sent in, and then I hope also I'll have a chance to hear from some of you, because I think we've all got reflections over this time, messages that we've come out of Hanukkah, messages that we've taken from Sydney, and messages for us in our own lives. So this was actually sent to me last week, but I wasn't able to print it, or it got lost in the printing, I should say. When I thought that after the Gaza atrocities afflicted by Hamas were coming to an end, and after the last 2 horrific years, the Jewish people had suffered enough, so I had thought. Then came the attack at the Heaton Park Shul in Manchester on the holiest day on Yom Kippur. However, I, together with all our families, must be deeply shocked regarding this savage attack towards the Jewish people of Australia on the first day of Hanukkah. Hatred has become the norm, so it seems. Kindness, decency, friendship, and peace don't seem to be popular anymore. Let's hope the light will shine through the darkness. I don't know if anyone saw last night. I think there were 20,000 people on Bondi Beach for the last night of Hanukkah. One thing doesn't negate the other, but the fact that that is the response does show that light will always continue to shine, even amongst the real heartbreak. Okay. Trying to remember. These sessions started, as we know, from our debriefs on what we felt visiting Poland and the effect the lost Jewish world in Poland and the death camps had on our being Jewish in the world of today. The consensus was that we had to find the answers to why the Jews. For hundreds of years, we have asked the question. Being a Jewish person in these times is becoming very uncomfortable in the diaspora for many reasons. The struggle is for those who are both religious and those who are not so religious to find the answers. Lighting candles over the last few days has reaffirmed that we are a light unto the nations. It is so powerful being able to light a symbol of being Jewish, in some ways more powerful than the other festivals we celebrate. And interestingly, I think Hanukkah on the census is the most celebrated out. I thought it was Seder night, but actually, yeah, I think now it's Hanukkah, which is really interesting. We like to come together as a group, as it gives the feeling of community, and this is our strength. We support each other, and by this we survive. For some, prayer is the comfort to move forward. Words from thousands of years ago still show us a way forward. For others, just being in a room with fellow Jews is comfort for them. A few people know they are born as a Jew, and they like the morals that we have and take them forward into the political world. They think they can then use this to support whatever cause they think is right. They are really frightened to be outside the herd and will do anything to show they are the ones who should be listened to, for they are the only good Jews. They are the only ones with a conscience, and the rest of us are evil. I thought this was a really interesting philosophy, trying to understand why there are some of our own who are spewing so much hatred. This idea of them wanting to just be like everyone else, the herd mentality. We know the type as a Jew with Holocaust survivor parents. I can speak for the Palestinians. I think we are at a stage when we must speak out against those who deny we are anything other than a legitimate faith. We must show that what we stand for comes from our one God, who demands of us that we follow this ideal. We have to teach our morals of our faith so that not only our own people understand what we are, but to the wider world. We are lucky in this Bushy community that our leaders understand this and promote this teaching and understanding. The last 2 years have been very difficult and to continue to be so, but we have seen hope and struggle come to us all from the example of our people in Israel. Faith may be the answer for those who survived the horror of the 7th of October and Gaza, but for those who have lost their lives, maybe it was something else. As Joseph Trumpeldor said, it's good to die for one's country. He was defending a Jewish settlement on the Lebanon border in Tel Chai. It's never good to die, but if the deaths stopped the spread of the evils around us, they did not die in vain. As we have learnt in our discussion, the will of God wanted those people to be with him, as they were good people. It's interesting if we look at Rabbi Eli Schlanger, and you look at this father of a lovely family. He's out in Sydney doing the most incredible outreach work. Can we say why Hashem wanted him to return to him at that point? Why evil was allowed to kill him and not someone next to him? We don't really know why, but I think that this idea of how much light this man, everyone knows who he is now. The amount of light he is now spreading in the world. I'm not convinced that as many people would have come to all of the different Hanukkah things if Sydney hadn't happened this year. Maybe. I think we're all anyway feeling so connected. And so, and we're seeing the anti-Semitism, but we don't understand Hashem's ways. We really don't. But what we can see is that this amazing young man who lost his life has brought so much light into the world. There's some clips of him before, showing him putting his menorah on the car, showing him bringing a menorah into his Chabad center. Clearly someone who had so much energy and cared so passionately about what he was doing, about bringing light into the world. And we don't know, and we don't understand.
Exactly. I was thinking all through this week, reflecting back on what's happened. All these Jewish festivals are not really known to the outside world. Now, more and more people know about Yom Kippur, Simchat Torah, and Hanukkah. I hope they don't know about it. But it's an odd way. It's an odd way of making sure people know about it.
Yeah, and you're right, because it can be used to incite more hate. Someone told me about on Yom Kippur, they were walking and they think that the only reason these kids started circling them was because they'd heard on the news that it was Yom Kippur, like they knew what she was doing, where she was heading to, but for the good as well. We had Father Andrew was with us last night, and I was talking to him, and he said, we'll never give in to the darkness. We will believe, and we have faith, and we know that good will triumph. And there are good people out there. And we've said this so many times, we are disproportionately filled with joy when someone not Jewish shows support for us.
When we were growing up, there were no outside celebrations. And we were wondering, this come from, sister from that.
Yeah, I think so.
Because Hanukkah was always inside, winter, we wouldn't talk to them.
Yeah. So no, I would. The big communal candle lightings outside, I think that does come from Chabad. But what's interesting is actually there is something about lighting outside. There's like a way of beautifying the mitzvah. So you can light with candles. It's even better to light with oil. It's even better to light with extra virgin olive oil, right? So there's different stages of lighting. But the same with it should always be on the window facing out so that everyone can see. But actually putting it even outside. So in Israel, has anyone seen the Hanukkah boxes? They're everywhere. They're amazing, the Hanukkah boxes, yeah.
Being in Israel, we have friends, and her family have lived in a small settlement just opposite Machne Yehuda, and there's a wall. You wouldn't know that there's a settlement, there's a door. No, it's a, you can go in, and it was the first settlement outside the old city. And very old-fashioned, low houses with red roofs. Everybody, every building, every house had a huge, like an aquarium filled with the oil lights. And there were tourist groups coming with guides to see this place. It was absolutely amazing. Squares with trees in. It was very beautiful, very old. Yeah. That was symbolic to me of why it's important to have
and it's really interesting because there's halachic questions, like if you're really high up in an apartment building, should you be lighting there? No one can really see it, so you're better off to light it in the front. But if you're on the front, the ground floor and you're lighting, maybe you should rather light it inside. There's all questions about where the most ideal place to be able to light. Like Reuven's in yeshiva now, and he asked our rabbi in Israel, where's the best place to be able to light? It's fascinating. I was listening, there was a comedian, I think, I'm sure everyone knows, if we had Christmas, how many questions would be asking about how many branches does the tree need to have and how tall and how, like it would be so complicated. But with a menorah, it really is like you need to, but I think one of my favorite things about living in Israel is at this time of the year, sometimes I would speak to my family and they'd be like, oh, when were we there? It's 2007. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that we'd already entered the new year. Like in this country, you could never not know that it was Christmas and New Year. But when you live in Jerusalem, there is nothing. There are menorahs. That's it. The next 2 weeks are nothing. So it's an amazing thing about the light of the Jewish people.
I think it's really interesting how what we do here in the diaspora is proceed in Israel, but particularly at the moment. And we have a family that WhatsApp group, like I'm sure most people do. And my brother lives in Israel, and so does he has a son and 2 daughters, and they all have children as well. And we were putting our menorah lights in our windows in the group. And my nephew from Israel sent this message, which is the most important part of Mitzvah, is advertising the menorah on the windows, and just like 100 in a neighborhood in Israel. Sorry, guys. And I just think it just shows what's going on in people's heads in Israel, and as well as what's going on here and in Australia.
And we know that they're worried about us. In Israel, they're worried about us, even though our country is not at war, but they really are worried for us. And if you think about the whole debate about taking down mezuzahs, there are places where people vandalized and took people's mezuzahs down. And then we put a menorah, like a mezuzah is one thing, it's a bit discreet, unless you're looking out for it, it's not very, but we've got, when you drive past our home on Richfield Road, we have that whole big window in the front, and especially if Malka's car's not there, you've got all those menorahs, like there is no hiding, this is a very proud Jewish home. And I understand why family abroad would be nervous. I even understand why people in our community might be nervous to do that. And if we still are able to, then who's winning? We are. Thank you, Nicole. Okay. I felt the need to write to you today following our Emunah session. I found it a very difficult session today. We talk about faith and beautiful thoughts and stories that bring us hope and joy, which is so uplifting. And I know we needed today's session further to yesterday's attack in Bondi. However, I'm also finding it difficult, just the fact we are discussing the subject matter every week, although I know that is what the sessions are for. However, we're being thrown into further terror attacks on us as Jewish communities around the world. We see the news as people are trying to hurt us, verbally abuse us, and the hatred of people wanting us wiped off this earth. I feel that nothing is being done, and it continues. I actually feel more stressed and shattered about everything that's going on than I have until now. The world has changed. The hatred multiplies daily, and I don't see how that is going to go away. We, the older people in the community, are united more than ever. The youth in Israel are more united than ever. But where are the younger people in our and other communities? Thank you, younger person. There we go. Where are the youth on our marches through London? In America, the data shows that 70% of Jews are marrying out. We are wiping our own communities out when we need to be more united than ever. I think that's such a powerful line. We are wiping our own communities out when we need to be more united than ever. And if you think about it, I think we've mentioned this before, but Rabbi Noach Weinberg, who was the Rosh Yeshiva of Aish, took all his educators to Auschwitz, and he spoke about the terrible atrocities that happened there. And he spoke about the fact that intermarriage and assimilation, this is the Hanukkah story. This is what the Maccabees were fighting against. This is what we struggle with as a people. Sorry to sound so negative, but today I came home and cried. I love our sessions and I love how it has brought us all together. It's great to have a space where we can share this. However, I also felt today that talking about the negatives is also highlighting the negativity every week, made it harder for me. I know that's not what it was supposed to take from it. I think it's very valid. I think it's important that we can share all sorts of feelings here. I think this isn't a space of just saying that everything's fine and everything's wonderful and, this is great and kumbaya. Actually, when we were leaving yesterday and we were deciding what we were going to do about Emunah and where we're going to have it, etc. I think I said to David, we're going to sit in a circle and sing kumbaya. That's not what this is about. This is about some really tough discussions. This is about the fact that really hard things happen to us as a people. And this is also about the fact that we're still here.
In my reflections, I was thinking about how, in a way, we're victims of our own success. And I know it sounds strange to say that, but people that are demonstrating against us do it in a safe place in the Western world. And that Western world is based on our 10 commandments. The do not steal, do not kill, do not bear false witness. Our whole judicial system is based on our 10 commandments. And I've told this story before, but when I think about how, when I was sitting in the hairdresser's telling my hairdresser about Shavuot and how that was the festival of fulfilling the 10 commandments, and this Irish lady sitting in the hairdresser said, "Oh, is that the same as our 10 commandments?"
Yes.
I said, yes, and we got them first. And it just goes to show that actually every moral standard that we've brought to the world has been taken for granted, and the younger generation just doesn't get it. They don't get it.
And I think what's so interesting is because we bring morality to the world, people who are immoral are not comfortable with us. That's the battle. That's the battle of the Greeks, right? One of the things the Greeks wanted to say was, you don't need to look to God for good and for light and for guidance. Look towards our human intellect and civilization. We're the most civilized culture in the world. Right? We are the most civilized, we're the most developed, we're coming up with science and philosophy and all these wonderful things. Why would you need to look at religion? Why do you need to connect to God? That's exactly what Hanukkah was about.
We're standing out now. We're in the news, and it's awful. It's not always for good things at the moment. It's really scary. But maybe that's what has to happen now, that we become stronger, more known. And like you say, it was our 10 commandments, not hers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that, because I've been saying to a few people today and yesterday was like, just leave us alone. Like, just ignore us. Don't be nice to us even. Just ignore. Just pretend we're not here. Get on with your life and let us get on with ours. But actually, Joy, you might be onto something there. Maybe that's not what we're meant to do as a people, right? We are meant to be like our goyim. We are meant to be as a light to the nations. So maybe that's the time now we're being forced into. Yes, we're in the headlines for lots of wrong reasons and lots of false, terrible things they're saying about us, but maybe there is something about that.
I've got a rather personal story about bearing the 10 commandments. I taught for a number of years in my career. And I was one day put up a cover to take an RS lesson. The head of RS was, "How can you put Miriam down and go into an RS lesson?" And the deputy head who had done it was himself an RS. And he said, "Of course, Miriam, you can go and talk about the 10 commandments."
There you go.
The numbering, I discovered the numbering system was different.
Oh, really? What's that? They changed the order.
So,
Really? How can you change the order? No, because they believe in the. Ah, okay. Okay.
So, remember the Saturday for them is some and then it's quite interesting. They have 2 4-room
Two.
Split that one into your neighbour's wife and your neighbour's property.
Yeah.
I don't think that's very clever. I don't like that. That's so funny. They number it wrong. But they believe in the Old Testament, so I'm surprised. I guess it just depends how they count it.
I was perceived by the festival I was at by FRS as such a massive resource on the test. Wow, I actually read the briefing. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, amazing, amazing. Thank you.
Oh, there was an interesting because I asked for time on religious observance, as they call it, and the headmaster talked about this. This was then part of the ILEA, so and he was told, of course, she has a the ILEA could not manually without Jewish teaching. Those are the words.
There you go.
So in York, they closed the school on Jewish holidays, non-Jewish school.
Because there's so many Jewish teachers.
It's like that in the primary school that my aunt was in, which was after the war, when the free schools, pre-war, no longer had a primary section. That school was not.
Yeah.
One school had
Right.
all of them.
Great. Amazing.
One of the things that I've noticed is what happened at Bondi, but with all the things that have happened, I've often asked where are the messages of support from my non-Jewish friends. I have quite a lot of non-Jewish friends on Facebook, and I'm quite active on Facebook. And I haven't really had very much support, one or two, but a few more came to me after Bondi. And I thought, and I was wondering why that was. And I thought the attacks in Israel, probably they couldn't relate to, and attacks in a synagogue, they probably couldn't relate to. But the attacks on a beach,
That's interesting.
they could relate
They were just
to.
people just like going about their day.
Yeah.
Mm. That's interesting.
The thing about the beach also was it wasn't just one madman going like that with a machine gun. He was on the bridge, just pointing his gun, thinking, who am I going to shoot? This 10-year-old child, I mean, every woman, I mean, anyone. I mean,
I think for me, one of the hardest things as well, and especially if we're talking about education. So Hanukkah, the word inside Hanukkah is chinuch, which is education. The Greeks obviously believe in their enlightenment and education, but education is so central to us as Jews. And I think to me, one of the hardest thing is that a father and son could plan this together and think it's a good idea and support each other. And that's education, because that's nothing's coincident. And the fact that that negative education happens on our festival of chinuch, of education, to me, that also, you know, it's just evil. Yeah, exactly. 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 Yeah.
Can you read out a very short email? We really answer. This is from Guy Wilkinson, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury. Very high up in the church, quite a nice chap. He wrote to a lot of different Jewish people, saying, dear friends, I shall be at the public Hanukkah cathedral in Bristol this afternoon. Sorry, bear with me a second. Just a second.
Do you want, Paul, should I read it out? Or can you do it loud? We've got to find it. It's the wrong one. You'll find it and then you'll know. Okay. Okay. I'm going to read out an email now, but it comes with a bit of a disclaimer. This was an email that was sent to me from someone in the group who's been thinking about this for a long time. It does talk about baby loss, so I just want to make sure it's your trigger warning. Everyone please make sure that you're okay. And if you don't want to listen, that's fine as well. If you want to go out the room, you can as well. But it's part of our group and someone who's on a real journey in terms of their struggles and grappling with faith. And I'm going to share that with you all now. Hi, Jacqueline. After much deliberation, I have decided it's time to share my painful but also positive story with others. I got married straight from university with hopes of starting a family as soon as we could, leaving any thoughts of a career until such time as family commitments would allow. When I was 23, our son was born. Like many new young mothers, I didn't have a clue, but muddled along happily with my very precious baby. We were far away from immediate family, but we had many friends in the community, and I had a circle of girlfriends with young babies to see during the day. Everyone in those days was a stay-at-home mum, unlike today. He had coughs and colds like other children, and on the particular day in question, he had a runny nose, nothing too unusual. We were invited to a friend for lunch. The health visitor had suggested that he was overweight, and looking back at the pictures, he certainly was. But at the time, I didn't think you could overfeed a breastfed baby, so hadn't identified it myself, and advised to spread out his feeds if I could. We had lunch and it was time to leave, and although he was looking for a feed, I hoped that he would go to sleep in the car and I would feed him when we got home. In those days, we put our baby's face down to sleep. So I tucked him into his carry cot, put it on the back seat of the car, and drove home with him crying in the back. He became distressed, and so did I, but I was stuck in traffic and was unable to pull over and pick him up and comfort him. He gradually became quieter, and I assumed he had gone to sleep. When we got home, I took him out of the car, still in the carry cot, and put him in his bedroom to continue to sleep, or so I thought. After a while, I went in to see him and realized that he wasn't breathing. I had no clue what to do. I didn't know how to attempt CPR, and in any case, it may have been too late. My husband was in his office in the center of town, and I was certainly on my own. In desperation, I phoned him and decided to go downstairs to a neighbor, an elderly couple in the ground floor flat. What a shock for them when I appeared and asked them to take us to the GP surgery nearby, thinking it might be quicker than an ambulance. I doubt if the outcome would have been any different if I had done so. Anyway, of course, when we arrived at the GP, there was nothing to be done. An ambulance came and took the baby to the local hospital, and I waited at the surgery for my husband to come, after which one of the doctors took us home. I will never forget the lovely nurse who sat with me while I waited and came and gave me a warm hug when I needed it. At that time, sudden infant death syndrome, cot death, was not recognized as a cause of death in its own right, although nowadays it is. We had to talk to a police officer at the hospital to rule out foul play, another surreal episode. Eventually, we went home and called our rabbi, who came to see us and told us the story of Bruria, whose twins died in infancy, and the reason given was that they were like precious jewels lent to them by Hashem for a short while before he took them back. I wasn't ready to hear that one, and maybe I am still not, but he was trying to offer comfort in the worst of times. How to recover from such a loss? I don't think you ever do, and even nearly 45 years later, you can scratch the surface and it's as raw as it's ever been. I'm sure I suffer from PTSD, again something not recognized in those days. There is no answer to the question why, or what if I had done something different, which might have averted the events that occurred. If I had only been able to stop the car, who knows? I couldn't understand why Hashem had let such a terrible thing happen to us, if he is supposed to be such a warm and caring father figure. I am blessed with a wonderful husband, and we weathered the storm together. I know that many couples split after such a tragedy. Also, a very supportive family, and we belong to a fantastic community. Maybe this is why I didn't just walk away from Judaism and lose my faith entirely. I don't really understand why, but something kept me in the fold. However, I have been angry with Hashem ever since we lost our baby for no good reason. Although I stopped asking why a long time ago, as there are no answers that I can see, and that way lies madness. We are blessed with 3 further amazing children and 5 even more amazing grandchildren. None of them replaced the one that we lost, although circumstances which we could have never anticipated have helped to almost square the circle. Our daughter was diagnosed with a medical condition, meaning that she cannot conceive naturally, and after a long process, she and her husband opted for IVF. As a result, they now have 2 beautiful children. They also made the wonderful and unexpected decision to name their son after our baby, ensuring that he won't be forgotten. It feels as if children who might never have existed if not for developments in modern science, together with a guiding hand from above, are now here in place of one who should never have been lost. It doesn't compensate, but it goes a long way towards healing the loss. And I took the decision that I will try to let go of that anger. Maybe we had to lose our baby to make room for another. That's a very tough one to get my head around. Thank you for the Emunah class. I have found this to be one of the hardest journeys I have ever taken, but I now see how hugely helpful it has been. I may never arrive at the destination, but it has taken me at least part of the way towards some kind of peace with our loss. I had that email last week and we decided together, we discussed it and we decided not to share it. And I was debating today as well. I think that the loss that we feel from Sydney, I think that the challenges that we feel from the last 2.5 years, I think it's important to realize how connected this is all to our own personal stories, every single one of us. And I think it's okay to have the feelings that we have. And I keep coming back round to that because everyone goes through difficulties. And to me, to have someone in our group who's gone through this, who comes all the time, who writes in and shares all the time, who wants to be part of everything going on in our amazing Jewish community. To me, that's when I say, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael, who is like our people Israel. And as the email said, when we go through a hard time, one of the easiest things is to either walk away or to feel anger. And all of those emotions and all of those actions are fine. But when someone chooses to channel that into doing good, into being good, into seeing positive, who is like our people? Hashem, so many challenges, whether personally or communally, have happened to us. And yet we rise. And yet we continue. And yet we light candles. And yet we continue to bring light into the world. To me, that is something that has to be shared and is so powerful. Paul, did you find your email? You okay? Okay, we'll do it another time. I've got one more email that I wanted to share with you. My daughter has just returned from her year 12 school trip to Poland. She was new to the school and I was so pleased that she signed up to go, despite only knowing friends at the school for a few weeks. I knew this trip was very important and meaningful, but I could not help also feeling a little apprehensive about her going. Would she cope okay? Would she be able to process what she is seeing? This trip stirred many emotions for me as a parent. When my son went 4 years ago, the focus was on bearing witness to the past and the responsibility of never again. This trip felt different. Those who have been to Poland since October the 7th, I'm sure will understand why. The phrase never again is now has taken on a painful reality since October the 7th. And I felt that acutely while my daughter was away. The way the past and present intertwined in unexpected moments left me feeling deeply uneasy. One such moment came when Sophie messaged to say that people shouted at the group in the streets, "Go back to Gaza." Then on Shabbat, as the group walked and reflected on the horrors of the past, someone shouted at them, "Heil Hitler," and "Go and die." I found hearing this from her deeply distressing. A journey meant to reflect on history and hope for the future was colliding with hatred in the present. Another moment has stayed with me. I checked Sophie's location on my phone and saw that the group was at the gates of Auschwitz. This alone made me go cold. At the same time, I had a live news app open and I saw their location. The reported simultaneously said, "The Jewish community has become a target in attack in Sydney." My heart broke seeing the past and present meet. Later that day, Sophie told me that while they stood there, the guards shared the news of what was unfolding in Australia. I cannot begin to imagine how this felt for them. While she was in Poland, I read the updates the students wrote and shared on social media. After reading one, I then came across a clip of Piers Morgan interviewing Nick Fuentes, to which Fuentes made a joke about the Holocaust, watched by millions. The contrast was unbelievable. Here were our children trying to comprehend what they were witnessing in Poland, while Holocaust denial and mockery played out openly on mainstream media. I know hatred and denial have always existed, but it feels more overt and unashamed now than ever before. My daughter arrived home after 1 a.m. She was exhausted after being awake since 5 a.m. Anyone who's been to Poland knows that Auschwitz day and the last day is like just full. You get up early and you get home very, very late. I suggested we talk properly the next day, but she asked if she could just share a few things before going to sleep. I braced myself, but what she told me surprised me. She spoke about the friendships she formed, the laughter, the ruach of Shabbat, arms around each other, singing and dancing. She spoke about kindness, about feeling truly part of a group, and about how much the trip made her miss Israel. She said the most traumatic moment was visiting the Chelmno death camp, where they stood in a forest where families had been murdered. As they were leaving, the guides began to cry because a single beam of sunlight broke through the trees, something the guide told them she had never witnessed before. She told me that they visited a shul where no Jewish people had davened since before the war. And standing there, she said she felt deeply connected. She told me it was the most powerful moment of the whole trip was to sing there, to bring Jewish voices back into a space that had been silent for so long. She shared that she took a different approach to being in Poland than she expected. Rather than focus on the darkness, she felt a sense of gratitude, especially when she was able to walk out of the gates of Auschwitz, something they were not meant to do. Despite everything, Sophie's words were filled with hope. They reminded me of the power of connection, friendship, and where, as Jewish people, we draw our strength. Recently, released hostage Ron Bohuslavsky said, "The only thing that gave me strength was knowing everyone around me wasn't Jewish, and that the reason I was there was simply because I am a Jew." This is what he believed had sustained him in captivity, holding on to his Jewish identity. I wondered if victims of the Holocaust had these same thoughts of holding on to their Jewish identity, the refusal to let it be taken. Maybe it gave them some quiet strength to endure, just like Ron. There is such a terrible sadness in recognizing these echoes from the past in our present. We may feel vulnerable as though we are on that wobbly bridge, but something within us remains steady. We are Jewish. They may try to hurt us mentally and physically, but they cannot extinguish our inner Jewish flame. It connects us to Hashem, to hope and love. At times it may burn dim, but it is always there. Carrying hatred only dulls our own inner light. We are being asked again and again to dig deep and find the light. And it's not always easy, but it is where our joy, our connection, and our Judaism lies. It cannot be extinguished. Even when we are gone, our light lives on in those we touched. Like Hanukkah candles, one flame can light many others. Even in Poland, facing both past and present, these young people connected to that light. I found that deeply inspiring. I know today has been heavy. I know we've shared some really difficult ideas together. But I think that incredible insight of, yes, being in Poland, in the darkest place where there is still anti-Semitism, and a group of beautiful Jewish children were shouted words that they should never have to hear in their life again. But yet, even when it's hard, we can all find light. And that's really what we need to take from this last day of Hanukkah, the Zot Hanukkah, the end of Hanukkah. We all need to continue to bring that light into the world, even when it's hard. And that is our choice, as was shared, the choice. We can be angry, we can despair, we can feel so low from everything that's going on. We can feel sad. These are all important feelings. And we can also find the light. And we can also find joy. And we can also find connection. And we all need to continue to look after ourselves and each other, because that's who we are as a people. That's how we've survived till now. And that's how we will continue to survive. So I'm going to wish everyone.
Just
Yeah.
one thing. When we were in Poland, just something that's just come back to me now. When we were in Poland and we were sitting in Auschwitz listening to our guide talking, it was a thick, miserable day like this, thick clouds. And then he spoke about the light of the Jewish people. And as he said, the light, there was this gap in the clouds and the sun beamed like through onto it. We were all like looking at each other going, did you see that? Did you see that? And it was as he spoke, and then it was gone, but it was such a definitive moment, actually.
Yeah.
It's funny, I've forgotten all about that, but actually
Thank
it
you.
was.
And I think that's the point, that we can't get rid of the dark. We can't get rid of, it's winter now, right? The sun's not gonna shine every day. It's gonna be miserable, but we can look for the light. We can't get rid of the evil. That's beyond, we do everything we can, but it's not in our control. But we can keep finding the light, and that's what we'll continue to do as a people.
I think it was my good. And it's funny because I added a line to that email and I took it out because I didn't feel confident in my own Jewish knowledge. But then what you said at the beginning about the creation, and I had written that and God said, let there be light as the first thing that was ever created. So therefore, that light is our essence. It must be the thing that is within all of us.
Yeah.
But I didn't know.
100%. 100%. Rebbetzen Rachel. 100%. 100%. That's where the light's gone. It's in us. And what we can do is we can find our own inner light, and we can also find the light in each other. Like, we're in a room full of amazing people who have incredible light, and especially in the darkness. We shared last week as well, but when the darker it is, the more the light shines. If you light your Hanukkah candles this morning, no one's going to see them. We lit them last night when it was really dark, and that's when you really see the light shine. Beautiful. Thank you. So let there be light. Thank you, everyone, and happy Hanukkah. We are not meeting next week, but please God, we will be back.